Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 42 of this marathon. Yeah, it's fine actually. You just get used to it, anything really. So I'm my buddy. I'm having a daily session of meditation and body work and Buddhist teachings. Hopefully, just things that are helpful for coping with isolation, coping with the coronavirus crisis. And so I've been doing one of these a day. Well, I had a week off after 28 days, so I'm doing another 28 days, and we're about halfway through that. And this week we're having different themes, roughly a week long each. And this week we're looking at ritual and devotion, and so we've been looking at the puja. So this is the puja book it's like a devotional text for Triratna Buddhism, and the puja has 7 sections to it, and each section is like progressive sections where we kind of get, it's like a rehearsal of what it might be to become enlightened, to become a Buddha. To develop qualities and practice and develop qualities and overcome difficulties and then start to become successful. So in the previous sessions, what we've done is we've looked at worship. So we've looked at worship. The word worship just means of giving. Giving. Acknowledgement of what is of worth. So we worship things that we value in life, in Buddhism, and then we then acknowledge that that we want to be open to those values by bowing to a shrine or something like that. It's just symbolically saying that my head is lower than yours. I want to try and become more like you in certain qualities, like maybe friendliness or calm or understanding. So it's like the bow isn't just about giving away our power to somebody or something else. It's about actually developing, being receptive to values and qualities that we actively want to cultivate. So so when I bow to the Buddha, it's like I'm saying, I'd like to have a greater understanding of things, in like the kind of understanding that you have. So something like that. And then in the third section in the puja, it's is about going for refuge. This is about the central act. In a way, central act in life for anybody. We all commit ourselves to something or other, a particular set of values, a particular lifestyle, and then that works. So it doesn't work. So Buddhists will commit themselves to the 3 jewels, to the Buddha, his teaching, the Dharma, and the Sangha, which is the community of Buddhists. And then we'll want to put those at the centre of their lives. I'll try to create a mandala. So a mandala is the arrangement of aspects of your life. Your work and your family and other things. Friends, occupation. Hobbies and stuff. So you want to start to move Buddhism a little bit more centrally, while still maintaining those other relationships or other interests. So it's like it's a question of emphasis, really. So when somebody becomes ordained, it's like the Buddhism part of things is really central to them and the most important thing. So that's effective. So yeah, but anyone can have Buddhism in their life to some degree or other. It might be bit further out on the mandala or something like that. So and then to the extent that we've got these values that are our values, that we want to. We've decided, that we'd like to practice. Then sometimes, we don't get up to meditate in the morning, or we don't. We find ourselves kind of breaking kind of precepts of awareness and friendliness and generosity, things like that. So, it's good to then acknowledge that if we want to move on. So we do something called confession. So we looked at that a few days ago. And so again, it's a personal matter. You do it for your own reasons, not because there's any pressure on you from anybody outside of yourself. So when you kind of genuinely see some wrong that you've done, and then you want to make amends for it, or you want to put it right, you might apologise to the person that you've harmed. You might even apologise to yourself if you've harmed yourself, and then you sort of try and make amends by putting it right, try and redress the harm. And then when you've done that, it's like you're clear again. Your mind is clear to your conscience is clear. Your emotions are free to then move on and engage with what you want to do. And then what tends to happen is your practice starts to work, starts to become successful. And so yesterday, this is what we looked at. We looked at kind of becoming brighter, becoming more. Being successful in your spiritual life, getting somewhere, creating happiness for yourself, other people creating happiness. So then what naturally happens is that we rejoice in that, we rejoice in merits of ourselves and other people actually getting somewhere in the spiritual life. So this is all a sequence that we can see within the puja that makes a sort of logical sense for us, so we don't have to think, I'm doing something here, what is this thing I'm doing? So if we can find a rational reason for things, I think it's really helpful. And then, so what happens next, which is the topic of today, is that we entreat the teacher to appear. So it's entreating supplication. So I think you see this, don't you, in movies all the time. Any kind of movie which has a maybe Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or things like that, or Kill Bill 2. They've all got this. You've got your teacher and you've got your person who wants to learn from them, and there's this kind of ritual that goes on between the teacher and the disciple. In Buddhism, in Zen Buddhism, if you wanted to join the monastery, you'd have to go and kneel in the snow for 2 days before, just to kind of prove that you were committed enough to it before you'd be allowed in. So this is the general topic of today, kind of teacher-student relationship. How that works, what happens. I'm going to sort of talk from my own experience about that, and also say a bit about what the Buddhist tradition says and what Sangharakshita says about it. So, okay, so that's the preamble for today. So we'll start, as we usually do, with a bit of body work. So just begin by just swinging your arms from side to side. So if you've not been here very much before, the reason why we do body work before meditation is that we always have a body there with us, and when we sit down to meditate, if our body's is sluggish or tired or maybe even too stimulated, overstimulated, then that has an effect on our mind when we sit down, and our mind often kind of mimics what our body's doing, so it maybe becomes a bit overstimulated, or it just sinks into a mire of dullness. And just rotating hips. So be deliberate about it, you know, for 4 corners, one side, to the front, to the other side, to the back. Try and keep the mind and the mind and body in the same place, not ahead of the other. So we're being mindful of our body and its position. And try not to rush. Notice I'm wanting to rush it. There's this self-awareness. Maybe allow your mind to just be a bit lazy, a bit vague. I have to be aware of how all this appears on video. If somebody just tunes in now, what's their opinion? So there's challenges in everything, really. Okay, and then just drumming with your fingers on top of your head, and being aware of the contact of your feet with the ground. Take a few deeper breaths. And then just putting your forehead in the palms of your hands and curving your spine over, curving your neck over. Just having a sense of turning yourself away from the world. You don't need to be communicating with the world at the moment. So your face can relax, and your voice can relax. And just feeling your breath, the sensations of the air on your wrists, maybe being aware of feeling of moisture in your breath. Just try to absorb yourself into whatever physical experience is there. So that there'll be a proportion of our attention which is going to our thoughts, and a proportion of our attention which is going to our actual physical experience. So we're just trying to shift that proportion to be more towards the physical experience and away from the thoughts. So thoughts are just thoughts. I can just imagine that we're looking down onto a train. We're on a bridge, we're looking down onto a train and all the carriages are going by, and it's like they're just thoughts, like just passing one after another. Maybe just hold your hands over your face and just breathe into the palms of your hands. Then give your face a bit of a wash with your hands. Get into your temples. And rub your hands together. Backs of your hands. Up your arms. Just brushing down the body deliberately. Imagine just just brushing down your arms like that and brushing the other arm, and then just imagine that you're sort of rolling all the stress up into a ball and then just throw it out the window like that. Roll it into a ball, just like that. Then brushing all down your body, down your legs, both sides, and rolling that into a ball and then chucking it out the window. Do it again. Okay, so now just put your hands on your stomach and bend your knees slightly and wait for your breath to calm down a bit. And then as you breathe out, just bend your knees, take your body down in one piece, and then as you breathe in, straighten your knees. So down on the out breath and up on the in breath. Down on the out breath, taking your spine down in one piece, vertically, up on the in breath, down on the out breath, up on the in breath, down on the out breath, and then put your hands out the front, up on the in breath, and bring your hands to your chin, turning at the chin, down on the out breath, turning at the hips, and then up on the in breath, and down on the out breath. Again, just keep your mind lazy. Maybe imagine that you've got space under your armpits. to your chin and keep going past your chin and then out to the. Okay, we lost a signal I think there for a minute. And then just standing and just being aware of the sensations in your body, how it feels to be standing. And then taking up your meditation posture. So if you've not been here before, just find a chair or something to sit on, or some firm cushions on the ground. Oh dear. Ow. So we're going to do the mindfulness of breathing practice. Basically, we're just going to watch our breath come and go. So this practice is often taught in 4 stages. So we have in the first stage, we just watch our breath come in, we watch it go out, just how our breath is. So we don't change it in any way. We just watch what's happening in terms of sensations and movements of the breath. And then, when we notice the breath has just left the body, we count 1 in our head, little count, breathing out, and then 1. And then we watch the breath come in again, we watch it go out, and then we count 2, and then watch it come in, watch it go out, we count 3, and we keep counting like that until we get to 10 after 10 breaths. And then the next breath, we watch it come in and we watch it go out. We count 1 again, and then 2 and 3. So we count sets of 10 breaths. And if we get on to 17, we've obviously forgotten that we're stopping at 10. We don't worry about it. We just start again from 1 with the next breath. And if we can't remember what number we're on, we do the same. We just start again from 1. And then in the second stage, we do the same counting sequence, but we just count just before the breath begins. So it's a little bit harder to mark something that hasn't happened yet, compared to when it has just happened. So we have to be a bit sharper with our awareness. In the third stage, we let go of all the counting altogether. We just try and be as aware of the breath as continuously as possible. And just keep coming back to it when we realise we've wandered off, which we will do, probably. And then the fourth stage, we watch the detail of the breath, so around the nose and mouth, so little delicate sensations that we actually experience that are there as we breathe in and breathe out, little bits of tickling on the nose and mouth as the air passes. So it's more this is harder to be aware of because the more subtle sensations. So this is the mindfulness of breathing. So I'll remind us what we do in each stage as we go. So just making sure that you're comfortable. Just make sure that your body, you're letting your body support you, rather than holding it up through an act of will. So yeah, and your mind and emotions can be not involved with your body. They need to be involved with the meditation. So just having a sense of disengaging them from your body, and all you have to do is to just balance your spine so that your weight goes down directly into the ground as much as possible. You're not leaning over one, either sideways or forwards and backwards. Just keep coming back to the balance of your spine. And then your muscles can feel confident that they can relax if the bones of your body are supporting your weight. So that's the basic structure of meditation. We let our body sit there, we let our skeleton support our weight, and then our muscles can then relax, and our mind and emotions can just be free from being worried about the body, and then can engage with the meditation subject. So mindfulness of breathing for about 15 minutes. Second stage, mindfulness of breathing, counting just before the breath begins. In the third stage, we just drop the counting and just follow the breath as it comes and goes, watching it come in, watching it turn around, watching it go out, watching it turn around again. And whenever our mind wanders off, just coming back to the next bit of sensation in the breath and carrying on from there. In the fourth stage, we just watch the delicate sensations of the breath around the nose and mouth as the breath enters and leaves the body. So in your own time, just bringing your meditation to a close. Okay, so sitting comfortably. So now we're coming on to the entreaty and supplication part of the puja. So what the verse says in the puja, puja is the devotional ceremony. So it says, saluting them with folded hands, I entreat the Buddhas in all the quarters. May they make shine the lamp of the Dharma. So that's the teaching of the Buddha. For those wandering in the suffering of delusion, with hands folded in reverence, I implore the conquerors desiring to enter nirvana. May they remain here for endless ages, so that life in this world does not grow dark. So what the text is saying here, what Shantideva is saying here basically, is that it's like asking the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the enlightened figures in Buddhism to stay around, to be in, to be with us, and to teach us in a way, So I implore the conquerors. So it just means jinnas. So it just means it's another epithet for the Buddha, conqueror. Desiring to enter nirvana. So it's a bit like what maybe they just want to just stay in nirvana and experience nirvana and not come out of that. May they remain here for endless ages. So it's like, so the bodhisattva stays in the world to help beings rather than enters into their own inner kind of world of nirvana. So they're interested in getting all beings to nirvana, not just themselves. In fact, that's what that's in a way that is the bodhisattva ideal, that they don't even prefer themselves to others. So it's like getting all beings to nirvana. So the bodhisattva does hold back from their own individual enlightenment. But there are all sorts of other reasons here why a Buddha might kind of think that it might be like difficult to teach people actually. So when so there's a story that when the Buddha gained enlightenment, he thought that it would be just too hard to teach people what he'd learned. It was so subtle and profound. The doctrine of conditionality or conditioned co-production was so difficult. He says, reflected to himself, I have penetrated this deep truth, which is difficult to perceive, difficult to understand, peace-giving, sublime, which transcends all thoughts. So it's like it's not just ideas. It's actually deep within the person. It's a deep realization, deeply significant, which only the wise can grasp. mankind moves in an earthly sphere. In an earthly sphere, he has his place and finds enjoyment. So it's like, people are interested in material things, and they're distracted by all sorts of things. So that's where they find their enjoyment. For mankind who moves in an earthly sphere and has their place, and finds their enjoyment in an earthly sphere, it'll be very difficult to grasp this matter, this law of conditionality, this chain of cause and effects. So there's a story that after the Buddha gained enlightenment, that he was sat there sitting in meditation, and he was actually doubting that it would be possible to teach what he'd realised. But then this figure, in a way, we got to see Buddhism in the context of the previous religions. So this in a way, the kind of one of the leaders of the gods, Brahma Sahumpati, he appeared, and he entreated the Buddha to teach. He said there'd be some people without dust on their eyes. So some people have been more receptive than others. And it said that the Buddha had this vision of like a lot of a pond of lotuses, and some of the lotuses were part open, and some are fully open, and some were still buried in the mud, all completely closed up. So he saw beings as like that. Some would be receptive, some would be open, some would be closed, and wouldn't be receptive. So then he decided that he would teach. So there's always this dichotomy between the teacher who has something to teach, and the student or disciple who wants to learn. But how much do they want to learn? Really. So Sangharakshita talks about, when he's talking in this book, Ritual and Devotion in Buddhism, which is about the Sevenfold Puja. He's saying that he says, suppose you want something from someone, but you are somehow reluctant to make this clear to them. Perhaps you want to borrow some money from them, and that that they'd be willing to lend it to you, but you sort of hesitate to make your needs known. So it suggests a kind of holding back or lack of confidence, and you're reluctant to put yourself in the position of possibly being refused. So he says this is analogous to reluctance sometimes to ask for a spiritual teaching. Perhaps you feel you're not worthy of it. Perhaps you fear that you might get more than you bargained for. You ask for advice and you might get some advice. You might indeed get some spiritual teaching, not just a little pat on the head. And this is the case, like how it was for people approaching Zen masters. They would, they might get something quite dramatic happen to them. We see this in in films like Kill Bill 2. Although that teacher Pai Mei is a bit, I don't know, it seems a bit like he's slightly kind of interested in violence more than anything else. If you ask them for a teaching, you really take it with Zen masters. You really take your life into your hands. People say they want to be taught, but it's not all that easy to find. It's not all that easy to find those who really do want to learn in the true spiritual sense. So it's good to express your willingness and readiness to learn, to make it absolutely clear that you're open, that you want to be receptive. So this is why people would sit in the snow outside of a Zen monastery for 2 days, kneeling in the snow. It's like they're trying to demonstrate that they are really receptive. They want to be taught, and it's not just a whim, or they're not going to then change their mind. So the teacher needs to really know that they're not going to be teaching this person for a while and then they're just going to disappear. It's a complete waste of their time. So it's really important, this idea of expressing receptivity. So this happens when people ask for ordination into Triratna Buddhism, Buddhist order, and Sangharakshita says that sometimes people adopt the attitude, I won't actually ask for ordination because when I'm ready, people will know and they'll just tell me. So it's not like that. So I'll just say a little bit about my own experience of on both sides of entreating teachers and kind of being on the teaching end. My main teacher is Sangharakshita here. Here he is in India with Dada Rinpoche. He was a Tibetan Lama that I've become very much friends with. So Sangharakshita basically created the movement that I'm part of. So all the Buddhist centres in Triratna all kind of owe their existence to Sangharakshita, and he laid out all the basic. It just evolved really. His thinking evolved over decades as to how to bring Buddhism into the West in a real, tangible way that worked. He brought in certain emphases like friendship, developing friendship, lateral friendship with each other. So there's a lot of that in our movement. People consciously cultivate friendships with each other, and we covered this a couple of series ago. So he's brought this particular. He's created a particular movement, and it was interesting the first time I met Sangharakshita in person. I was at the West London Buddhist Centre, and we just thought we'd ask him to come along and do something at the centre. So he came, and because I was the one that had been delegated to ask him, I asked him, and then I kind of hosted the thing. So there was a meal at somebody's house, and it was interesting because people were sitting. It was about 12 of us, and a lot of people just so kind of like deferential. It was like there wasn't much happening. It was a bit. I felt a bit awkward about the whole thing because it was all a bit wooden, So I just thought I'd just start to joke a bit and try and lighten the atmosphere a bit. And I think Sangharakshita really appreciated that, because it was like I was seeing him as a human being trying to make something happen there between, So I think from then onwards, that was the beginning of a bit of a connection I had with him that would come in, decades later. There would be this feeling of a connection and a common understanding, really. At West London Buddhist Centre, I had a couple of teachers there. So this is Paramananda. This is when they opened the new centre in Notting Hill. And that's Jnananda, that's Bodhi Leela, who became the chair. So Paramananda's been very much a teacher for me. When he did my first meditation day back in 1988, and and I've had a kind of friendship with him ever since. And he comes down. He comes to. I'm now in Manchester. He comes to Manchester and does days, weekends on meditation, and I host him. But I also go down to London and see him and things. And it's interesting, my relationship to him, because even though we're friends, there's a sense in which sometimes I can turn up, I can ring him up, and it's like I'm not quite in the right frame of mind or something. I'm not quite bearing him in mind, you know. So I think when I phone him up, I need to make sure that I'm in the right state of mind, and I'm not like wasting his time. So it's like I have to kind of like raise my awareness. So even though he's a friend, he's also a teacher. You know, I need to raise my awareness so that it's gonna sync with his. You know, I'm gonna be open to him, and yeah, and sometimes I kind of fall away from that. Yeah, so I think. Yeah, so I think I see this in my experience, this entreater, the need to entreat, the need to, in a way, I mean, Padmasambhava, who took Buddhism to Tibet, there's a story of the three women who he asked them to make a banquet for him, and it's like. It's not like he needs a banquet. I mean, as a yogi, you know, he lives, you know, would be living on next to nothing, living in a cemetery as a meditator, and you know, he doesn't need. He's enlightened. He doesn't need a banquet, but he needed for their benefit. They needed to make him a banquet. You know, they needed to demonstrate their openness to his teaching by showing visibly. Going out their way to make an offering to him. So I think this is how we need to see offerings to teachers and that sort of thing. It's not so much that it isn't at all that they need that. They don't need it. It's like the student needs it. The student needs needs to be demonstrating that. So on going in the other direction, you know, me as a teacher, so I've really it makes a massive difference to me, you know, when people demonstrate their enthusiasm, you know. So Liz Ashley, who's been on you know, in these sessions a lot of the time, she really lets me know how much she appreciates what I'm doing, and that's an important condition for me to be carrying on to do, you know, because I'm getting a positive feedback loop happening where I'm doing something and I'm getting, you know, thank you back for it, and so it makes a difference, and this is all human. This is all humanity, really. It's all about the reality of being a human being. You know, we all need to know, you know, whether we're having an effect or not, or whether, you know, if we're going to carry on. So what else have I got to say? So I think in the puja, what this section in a way brings into relief is that, well, it's a bit like, you know, we might commit ourselves to Buddhism, we start practicing it, we admit to other people and make amends when we've done wrong, you know, when we've sort of let ourselves down. So we come into a spiritual relationship with other people, and so when people meet up as fellow Buddhists at different levels, so order members meet in groups every week, and people who are training for ordination meet in groups every week and share their experience and share their trials and tribulations and successes and all that. So we do all of this, but then at a certain point, it's almost like we need that one-to-one relationship. We need to have this kind of what's called a vertical relationship. We have horizontal relationships with friends, but at some point it's like we need this kind of like to come into some sort of relationship with somebody that's got things to teach us, and the teaching isn't about just giving a teaching, like this is what the Buddha says or whatever. It's kind of more about transformation. So it's like in the Buddhist tradition, you would have teacher-disciple relationships that were quite strong, really. That were where the teacher's like really making the student do things, putting them through trials and ordeals and all that. And this is because, it's like the person needs to be transformed. The deeper parts of the person all need to be transformed. Their fears and their arrogance and So there's a well-known story about Milarepa and Marpa. So Marpa was the guru to Milarepa, and Milarepa had been quite kind of evil character. He'd sort of used black magic on people, and so he had a lot of karma to be purified, a lot of bad karma to be purified. So what Marpa did was he said, okay, I want you to build a tower over there, out of brick. So he would set about building this tower, and he'd build it, and Marpa would then go, no, not there, over there, not, just have to take the tower down and put it up over there, and then same thing, no, over there, So it's like he's putting him through this ordeal, and it's a way of purifying his karma, so that he then stops like thinking of himself and starts just doing whatever his teacher wants him to do. So in the end, when his teacher then starts giving him teachings, he will be really practicing those. He will be really he will be doing those wholeheartedly, not sort of half-heartedly. So so there's always been this tradition of the intense relationship between guru and disciple, and so it's like we need this intensity, really, if we at a certain point, if we're going to really make progress. So there's a teaching in Mahayana Buddhism, which informs Tibetan Buddhism. It's a teaching in Tibetan Buddhism as well, called the Five Paths. And in Triratna, we kind of like base our system on the five paths, but it's kind of different in Tibetan Buddhism, and I've done a bit of research into that, or like thinking about it. And so what happens is we go about our ordinary practice, and we practice ethics and meditation and try to cultivate some wisdom. And we do this in an ordinary way, and in the five paths, this would be called the path of accumulation. We accumulate merit and wisdom. We accumulate qualities. We accumulate good karma and all that sort of thing. But then at a certain point, we move into something called the path of preparation, and this consists of the five spiritual faculties. So the five spiritual faculties are concentration or samadhi, virya or energy in pursuit of the good, or you could see it as ethical robustness, faith or shraddha, so faith in the three jewels. So it's like our hearts being into the three jewels, placing your heart upon the three jewels, on Buddhism, the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, wisdom or prajna, and then mindfulness in the middle. So the mindfulness in the middle is like balancing the different. So you balance faith and wisdom, and you balance concentration or samadhi and ethical robustness or virya. So, and what all this is doing, it's like everything is orientated towards enlightenment. In a way, it's all orientated towards going for refuge, towards the three jewels. So it's like it's concentration on nirvana, it's ethical robustness around Buddhist ethics. It's like not giving up when things get hard, not getting distracted by too much pleasure if things are going well, keeping focused on being skillful. It's about faith in the three jewels, not something else. It's about getting clearer and clearer and more emotionally behind, more devoted towards the three jewels. And it's about wisdom, which is Buddhist wisdom. It's about seeing the nature of things from a Buddhist perspective, not just seeing things as impermanent and all that, but seeing that things are conditioned and that we need to create the conditions that are going to bring enlightenment about for ourselves and others. So, we do build sanghas. We create, we build a community. We build a body of work in a way that we've done that's going to be helpful to people. So it's not about us, it's about them, a lot of the time. So what and then mindfulness is like gets more and more intense, so we keep pulling all these together. So it's almost like what we're doing is we're building a spiritual personality, that's going to be robust, it's going to be clear, it's going to be devoted to the three jewels, it's going to be concentrated, it's going to be focused. And this is what we need really to do the next path, the next stage, which is the path of seeing. So it's seeing into the nature of reality. So it's almost like we need all this power. So what happens is the five spiritual faculties, once they become more and more and more developed, they become powers. So power is a spiritual faculty that can't be shaken. It's unshakable. So if we've got unshakable faith, we've got unshakable wisdom, unshakable concentration, unshakable ethical robustness, and unshakable mindfulness, there's nothing that we're not going to be able to take in, So we're going to be able to take reality at that level, at that point. So in Tibetan Buddhism, this stage, the path of preparation, is connected with getting into a lineage. The word is Gotrabu. So it's like you develop all of this because you're in a lineage, because you've got a guru who's putting you through your paces, who's telling you what you need to do to develop your weaknesses, to work on your weaknesses and your weaker areas. What could be better, as they say. So it's like you're not just relying on your strengths. It might be intellectual and you're resting on that laurel. You're working on your weaknesses. Your lack of faith, or your lack of concentration, or your lack of ethical robustness. So if we bring all of these up, the guru sees what we need. They have the much broader perspective on the whole of, because they've gone there, or they've gone further there than we are. That's all you need, somebody who's gone further than you. This is the condition. This is the real condition that's going to help us to develop this readiness to take reality in. So it's about they'll be exemplifying things to us. That's one of the ways in which the community of Buddhists is built. It's through exemplification, and that sort of thing. So, but it's, it's also about they'll be saying the useful things to us, things we really need to hear. So I'm just going to finish on. I'll just recite the section, the relevant section about entreaty that's in the puja. Puja from the Sutra of Golden Light, which is the confession puja. So, if we were doing this puja, we would have just recited the verses on confession. So I'll just recite some of this. The last part. Whatever severe evil I have done in the oppression of existence, or through foolish thought, in the presence of the Buddhas, I confess it all. I confess that evil which has been heaped up by me in the oppression of birth, in the oppression of existence, in the oppression of the fleeting mind. It goes on like this. And then it says, it goes into rejoicing in merits. The Buddha is a golden lord of mountains. His body is radiant with the marks of excellence. He is brilliant with the fine splendour of gold. He has the sweet voice of a high angel, the sound of a thundering cloud. So we rejoice in merits and praise the Buddha, and then we move on to entreating the Buddha to appear. Constantly, I recollect the Buddha, and constantly I long for a sight of him. And always, constantly, I make a resolve in order to see the Buddha Sun. That's S-U-N. Constantly kneeling on the ground, I am consumed with longing to see the Buddha. Weeping pitifully for the sake of the leader, I long to see him. That's quite dramatic, isn't it? Who has attained supreme, say him who has attained supreme bliss. I am constantly ablaze with the fire of longing. Give me the cool water of your appearance, O Conqueror. Gladden me out of your compassion, out of mercy and compassion, show yourself to me. So it's like this is the mood of really wanting to, it's the kind of attitude that, we need to have in order to attract the teacher towards us. And we do that by bringing to mind the person's qualities. What we're actually looking for in the interaction, in the relationship. It goes on to say, the sphere of the Tathagata, that's the Buddha, is pure like crystal. The conqueror has entered the city of the supreme nectar of the Dharma. He is able to bring to beings unlimited blessings. The sphere of the Tathagata, the sphere of our teacher, is subtle, wonderful, and very profound. Among all beings, none is able to know it. Among even the greatest of the world's sages, none is able to know it. Now I have no doubt concerning the sphere of the Buddha. May he therefore, out of mercy and compassion, show himself to me.